What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Field Stormers. We hot, we rolling. It's week 2 of the college football season. As always, I'm your host, Mo Murphy, and I got my co-host, as always, in the building. It's not Field Stormers without the both of us. Walker Bailey in the building. What's going on, bro?
Not much, man. Just what a wild week too. It was a lot of fun. You just kind of know the season's here now. It's a lot. There's a lot to talk about, a lot to react to. Really exciting stuff. So glad to be back.
And I'm glad you said that. Like yesterday was really exciting for a possibility of it could have been a boring week 2. There were some matchups worth looking forward to. There were some matchups worth, maybe somebody's on upset alert. And we broke that down, in our preview for week 2. But at the same time, like you could have seen all those games get carried away and it just be like, okay, this is an early college football season. This is how it goes. We know the great teams are going to be great and blow teams out. And this is what we expect. We don't learn a lot, but I'm an Ohio State fan, so I have to talk about this. I know pre-show we talked about you didn't really watch the game. Not mad at you. I wouldn't have watched the game either. I only watched Ohio State versus Youngstown State because I'm an Ohio State fan. Outside of that, I wouldn't have watched it. That's like saying, hey, I watched LSU Grambling, but not being an LSU fan. Like, only fans of those teams are going to watch those type of matchups. But I just want to talk about for Ohio State and Ohio State fans, I'm going to say this. The quarterback competition is over. I said it during the game. I said it in the first half when Kyle McCord came out slinging the ball. The quarterback competition is over. I don't want to hear no more about Devin Brown. I don't. They gave him an opportunity in the first half as well. We were up like 21-7. They put him in to kind of get some first half action to see like, okay, when the game's not absolutely carried away, what does he look like? And he looked bad. Like he looked absolutely bad. He was off target for some throws. And you did that after watching Kyle McCord. I'd say this. Kyle McCord wins the starting job for the simple fact I saw the chemistry with him and Marvin Harrison Jr. You can tell they were former teammates. Off that alone, knowing that I have the best wide receiver in the country and my quarterback has chemistry with him and he's a playmaker and I could just get him the ball and that could probably win us some games. He's my starting quarterback, but he looked almost flawless yesterday. And I know it's against Youngstown State, but my thing was after the way he looked against Indiana, I feel like if you want to be the starting quarterback, you have to look almost absolutely flawless against Youngstown State or else we have real concerns. And so people were like, well, how do you learn anything against Youngstown State? Well, here's my thing. Every great team, you expect if their quarterback is any good, you expect them to play really good or almost flawless against bad teams. Like, that's the expectation. Like, that's how C.J. Stroud would have played. That's how Justin Fields would have played. And I'm not putting him on that pedestal. I'm just saying if a guy is good, he's going to play really good against those bad teams. And that's what we learned yesterday with Ohio State. I just want to get that off my chest. I know you didn't really watch the game. I think we're going to learn a little more about Kyle McCord going into Western Kentucky next week. We probably won't touch on that because we might next week just because it's me being an Ohio State fan, just like we got to touch on Ole Miss. Ole Miss actually had a big game, but we'll get on that in a second. So, Walker, I'm done with my little ramble real quick about deading the Ohio State quarterback competition. We're not even going to go in orders of games played. Yeah, we are. Nebraska, Colorado. And I know you're a hater. Like, you're not buying into Colorado, but I want to ask you.
I was, but yesterday was more impressive to me. Like I was more like this Sunday, I'm more in than I was last Sunday. Like I'm now a little bit more, which also like I think it's a different game if Jeff Sims is even halfway competent. Like Jeff Sims was awful. I also thought Marcus Satterfield was awful. Like the play calling was terrible. Like get Jeff Sims out from under center. And if you're gonna keep him in the game, then like use his legs, make Colorado honor his legs, and basically run the modern day triple option. And they didn't do that. And they finally, got down and to start the second half, they let Sims use his legs on 3rd and 18 and basically concede a drive and he busted for a touchdown. And it was almost like, wow, would you look at that? Like when you're running quarterback runs, good things happen. So I just thought it was a poorly coached. I thought Nebraska coached poorly. I thought they played poorly. I thought Colorado was, for the most part, pretty good. Like I thought their defense was better. Hard not to be better when the other team can't catch the snap. But they turned short fields into points, and they did what they did against TCU, which was in the low red zone on defense. They kind of bent, didn't break. Nebraska turned the ball over down there again. They missed a field goal. They left a lot of points out there. I don't think for Colorado that's a formula for success, just relying on your opponents to beat themselves repeatedly in the red zone. But I mean, for now it worked. And then the offense took a minute, which I think we talked about this last week. Nebraska's defense was legit, and so we thought they would struggle, and they did. And then eventually, as Colorado played at that tempo and played at altitude and kept Nebraska's defense on the field all day because Nebraska's offense couldn't stay on the field or they were turning it over, they just kind of wore them down. They wore them down, and eventually, the dam broke, and Colorado put up a bunch of points in the second half and was able to put the game away and put it out of reach. It felt like there for a minute that Nebraska was going to get back into it. But they didn't. Colorado put them away. It's 2 wins. I mean, the preseason win total was 3.5, and they're 2-0, and going to be 3-0 next week. So
yeah, because I think they beat Colorado State, and that's kind of to look ahead with Colorado. So I think first off, I thought Colorado was going to be decent. Like I'm like they'll win. First off, how can you not improve just by upgrading a head coach? How can you not improve off a 1-win team? You know what I'm saying? Like you bring in a few players, you're already better. Travis Hunter didn't even have an amazing game yesterday. He didn't stand out absolutely, but he had some plays. Hey, every playmaker ain't going to play great every game. Ask Marvin Harrison Jr. that, because last week we're like, where was Marvin Harrison Jr.? As opposed to this week, we're like, there's Marvin Harrison Jr. He's back. Let's get him going. Same thing with Travis Hunter. He played absolutely amazing last week. Kind of quiet this week, but that's okay. You don't have to play elite every week. At the end of the day, especially when you walk away with wins, then everybody knows Travis Hunter is a dude. Everybody knows when it's his time to come out for the NFL after next season. This dude's a top 10 pick. I'd be surprised any different, barring any injury, so knock on wood, that never happens. But outside of that guy's a dude. Colorado, though, like my biggest thing with Colorado is like, bro, is Shedeur Sanders like really that good? Like, is this dude like literally like he looks like
who he reminds me of?
Quarterback. Like, I'm not saying a great NFL quarterback, but he
who he reminds me of watching him, and I thought about this yesterday. He reminds me so much, just his movements and mannerisms, of Deshaun Watson. Like just the way he moves in the quarterback, the way he moves in the pocket, and the way he kind of handles himself and stuff like that. Like it's not. He reminds me a lot of Deshaun Watson in a lot of ways, because just the way, even just from the way, like he rolls left and like has his hand off, like the left hand off the ball, and is always looking like just, there's a lot of things that he does that remind me of Deshaun Watson. He's not as good of a college quarterback as Deshaun was, but still, like that's a lot. That's a really hefty praise, given that Watson was arguably one of the best college quarterbacks we watched maybe ever. Like he was a dude. And so but that's what I thought. I kept thinking yesterday. I was like, wow, like he kind of reminds me of Deshaun Watson, the way he moves around back there.
Bro, watching him though is like, bro, this dude, like, forget, you know what I'm saying? Like when he came from HBCU, the first thing I said was, this ain't HBCU ball. You got to prove it, right? I feel like through 2 weeks, he's proven it. I feel like he's a top 3 Heisman candidate right now. I hope he continues it. But even farther than that, this guy looks like, I'm going to put a stamp on it. This guy looked like he could be a first-round draft pick. Like, we're talking about Caleb Williams, Drake May. After that, though, the conversation is Shedeur, Michael Penix. Like, I think he's put himself in that category where, hey, this guy, he's bigger than just his daddy's last name. You know what I'm saying? He is a dude. Like, bro, Shedeur is damn good. He makes plays in the pocket, out of the pocket. And I think he could play in the NFL. And I think he could be a first-round guy. Now, is he top 5 pick? No, but yeah. I think he's a first-round guy.
Now Deion's other son, on the other hand, no good. He's no good.
He's Deion's son. He
truly is. He is truly Deion's son. Yeah. No, but I mean, I was impressed. Listen, they're 3 touchdown favorites against Colorado State next week. Like, they should be able to handle business. Yeah, and they should be able to handle business and get out of there with a win. And then, and then the tests start. Then you go to Oregon.
Back to back. You got Oregon and USC. That's where we really
even after that, you go to Arizona State, and Arizona State's got a quarterback that's just as talented as Shedeur from a raw talent.
Nice.
Yeah. And so you've got, they've got a quarterback that's just as talented as Shedeur. So like, the test will begin, and then I think they're on the road at Utah at some point, on the road at Washington State, who looked really good yesterday. I know they've got Oregon State at some point. I think that one's at the crib, but even still, like Oregon State's going to be a real deal
Oregon
test.
State's a damn good team.
Right. And so I the test will begin. I still think it's probably a 4 or 5 win team. But again, like I said this before the season, like if Deion went 3-9, like that should be viewed as a significant accomplishment given where this program is coming from. Like, programs don't get built overnight. It's a hard thing to do, especially now in the NIL era. And so I think, if they win 4 or 5 games, like he should probably be a coach of the year candidate. Like that's a massive improvement. So I think that's kind of where they're at right now. Would it surprise me if they beat Colorado State and didn't win another game? I mean, no, but it wouldn't surprise me either if they went ahead and won like 3 more games and went 6-6. Like
because this
neither
don't look like a team that's going to go on a 9-game losing streak though. Like even though they knocked off TCU, they knocked off Nebraska. I think they'll knock off Colorado State. Even if they lose the next 2 and they're 3-2, it just doesn't look like a 9-game in a row losing type of team, bro.
Here's my thing with that. Everybody looks like a team that's not going to do that until they get socked in the mouth and get blown out, and then we'll see. Like it's easy to say. It's easy to say it when you're beating Nebraska 36-14 and you're pulling off a massive upset on the road on week 1. Like everything is sunflowers and daisies. Like we're gonna see. Like we're gonna find out. And I'm not saying either way. Like I don't know. Maybe they will respond. Maybe they won't. I don't know. But we'll find out because I think Oregon and USC are probably going to pop them pretty good, and so we're going to find out. Like I think, God, like USC could score 77 and 77-84 in that game if they really, really wanted to. I don't think they're going to have to, and so they'll probably won't. But I mean, USC is going to score whenever they feel like scoring against Colorado. And Oregon's defense will be the best defense that Colorado's seen yet, more than likely.
Yeah.
So, I think that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like I think that they're going to be 3-2 headed into that set of 3 games, that Oregon, USC, Arizona State stretch, where they have 2 road games, and then we'll kind of find out. We'll just kind of find out and see where it goes from there. Especially with Deion, he's not a first-time head coach, but he's a first-time FBS head coach, and Jackson State also never really had losing streaks. So let's just say they lose 3 straight there and they drop to 3-5. How does he kind of rally the troops, keep everybody together, kind of focus on the task at hand? So,
yeah, I don't disagree with you. It's just, I mean, like I said, I'm very proud of Deion Sanders. I love what Colorado's doing, but like we're really gonna see come Oregon. I expect them to start the season 3-0. I expect them to beat Colorado State and really like, okay. I feel like TCU was your first test for the simple fact of based on expectations. Like, oh, Colorado's just overhyped, blah, blah, blah. That's what people were saying. And then they beat TCU. And then it's kind of like discredit a little bit. Like, let's make it about how bad, like TCU is not as good as we thought. Then it's like, oh, Nebraska might come in there and upset them. Or, I mean, if you consider it an upset, but like Nebraska might come in there and humble Colorado, and Colorado comes and just blows Nebraska out the water. Now, granted, the score, it took a lot longer to get the score where it was than what it looks like. But even still, like to be 2-0, they're somewhere that nobody thought they would be right now. So shout out to Colorado. Just shout out to Colorado. Shout out to Deion for really, bro, at the end of the day, he turned in one summer, bro, he turned the program around and the culture around. And I think he could continue to build on it just because, bro, like these first 2 weeks are going to make people want to come play for Colorado. Period, point blank. They're going to come play for Deion Sanders. But I do want to talk about Miami beating Texas A&M. Not only did Miami beat Texas A&M, they put up 48 points. Like, and it was, they only won by 15, and I say only, but like it was worse than the score says. Like it felt like a 3 or 4 touchdown game. Basically, after like the beginning of the game when it was kind of like sluggish, and then when Miami got picked up, they never looked back. Like when they picked their pace of play up, they never looked back. Tyler Van Dyke looked like a world beater yesterday. Like
2 years ago, man. He looked like the one that had people picking him to win the Heisman last year.
Bro, he looked great. 21 for 30, 374 yards, 5 touchdowns. The man looked great. Where I want to put the focus on, though, is not A&M, not Miami, but I do want to bring this up. I feel like the SEC is pound for pound, year in and year out, they are the best conference in football. That's not what I'm stating right now. What I'm stating is the SEC look like they're in trouble as far as just comparing for how well each conference is doing. And I think right now through 2 weeks, the SEC is probably the third best conference in football because they look a little shaky. A&M loses to Miami. Ole Miss struggled-ish. I know you're going to be more critical on that, and we'll talk about that in a second. But, like, Ole Miss didn't look the hottest against Tulane for the longest. LSU has already lost to Florida State. You know, Bama lost to Texas, which we're going to talk about. Like, yeah, South Carolina
got drubbed. And North Carolina definitely didn't look like world beaters yesterday. So
no, against Appalachian State. So, like, the SEC looks a little shaky as far as just being the flat-out dominant conference, and it's not like these teams have played such a schedule. Outside of Bama, these teams haven't played such a schedule where they shouldn't look like the normal SEC. They shouldn't look like the SEC
Alabama and LSU get a pass. They don't get a pass. They don't get a pass.
Like they did play. Yeah, like, those were the two best games of the year so far, as far as matchup wise and prepared.
Really, the only one that's inexplicable is South Carolina. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think just from an eye test standpoint, I just don't think it looks like you would typically expect a lot of those higher tier SEC teams to look. You know, Tennessee, like I caught a little bit of this game. Tennessee looked like dog shit yesterday. I mean, they looked awful.
Like Austin P.
Yeah.
Come on, dog.
Like, yeah, come on. They. It's bad when their beat reporters are tweeting out and blaming the refs for why they look so bad against Austin P. I mean, that's no good. Like, that's bad. Mississippi State looked like dog shit against Arizona last night. If Jaden DeLora doesn't throw, he was worse than Jeff Sims as far as turning the ball over. He turned it over. I think they turned it over 5 times. And State had to State got out by 3 inches in overtime. Like, at home, no good. Good. So I know that those are kind of like, that's just kind of the top to bottom effect. Like, I mean, State's no good. Obviously, Vandy's no good. They got drubbed by Wake. Georgia's had some trouble scoring, which, I mean, that kind of is what it is. Like, I think they'll get better. But they've had some trouble scoring to this point. Alabama's got a loss. LSU's got a loss. Ole Miss was pretty shaky yesterday for a while. Kentucky looked like ass. Kentucky snuck out against Eastern Kentucky with a 10-point win or 11-point win. No good. No good. Arkansas looked like trash. Like, I mean, really, just the whole conference just doesn't look particularly good. You get the point. Florida got beat by Utah's backup quarterback by 2 touchdowns. It's just not great. I mean, it's still, I'm sure that it'll get better this year, kind of as we go. But for now, it's not great.
And that's all we can react off of is 2 weeks, right? We can put our projections on what conferences will look like. But then on the other hand, bro, the Pac-12 that's going to be dismantled after this year look like the best conference in football. And I'm going to be honest, I think what I like about it is Washington look good, Oregon look good, USC look good. They're coming to the Big Ten. So, like, it looks like the Big Ten is going to strengthen and be able to. Now, if you talk about matchup for matchup, I that's a conversation for another day. But they look like they're going to be able to kind of sit at the helm and, compete with the SEC for the best conference. Now, granted, those are the 2 best conferences in football year in and year out anyway. So that's not saying much. But there's a point in time where you might look at the Big Ten and be like, hey, next year they could be the best conference in football. Tough to say that when Texas beats Alabama. But let's talk about Texas beating Alabama. So I think there was a lot of pressure on Texas to get it done. A lot of people feel like for Texas, this is their year. I picked them to win the Big 12. So I'm sitting pretty. I would have still been sitting fine, even if they lost that game because it wasn't a conference loss. So essentially it wouldn't matter. But Texas looks for real. Quinn Ewers looks like a guy. He's pretty damn good. He still had some plays that were shaky yesterday, right? Like, it's not like he played flawless, but you don't need your quarterback. You want your quarterback, but you understand if he doesn't play flawless against an Alabama defense and a Nick Saban led team. Like, you understand that, like, it's not going to be perfect, but when you look pretty damn good, like, I can't wait to see what Texas look like for the rest of the season. But they've also set themselves up where, like, okay, the expectations are going to rise so high. Now that you beat Alabama, you're going to be considered one of the best teams in the country. You have the second, or if not the best win, you got the best win in the country right now. Florida State has the second best win beating LSU. You got the best win beating Alabama. But now expectations rise. Now that you've knocked off one of the creme de la cremes in the SEC, like, the expectation for Texas is that they're going to run through the rest of the Big 12. That's always a setup for there's an upset sitting somewhere on their schedule, and you can't get complacent right here because, bro, Texas has an opportunity. Beating Alabama, they control their own destiny now. They need to run through their conference. Not an easy ask for anybody, but at the same time, like, you control your destiny to be a college football playoff team. You control your destiny for the first time since the playoff era has started that Texas could be in the college football playoffs. Walker, do you believe that this is a college football playoff team and finishes the season as one of the 4 best teams in the country?
Yeah, I mean, I put them in the playoff preseason. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I think so. I think that's kind of where they're at. I think the big thing for them last night was Ewers hit the deep ball, which that's not something he's done at all through his tenure at Texas. So hitting the deep ball is what won in the game last night. It really opened everything up. They were able to run the ball. They executed. They were fundamentally sound. Like, I mean, they just kind of outlasted Alabama. I think Saban was 104-8 coming into last night at Bryant-Denny Stadium. So it's 104-9 now.
They haven't lost they haven't lost at home. I want to say, bro, it was
LSU in 19.
Yeah, they're like 50 something and 1. Like, and it was LSU.
LSU in 19 when Burrow was there, and then before that it was Ole Miss in 2015 when Chad Kelly came to town and whipped that ass.
Yeah, so they were like 50, like they've won like 50 something, like 52-1 or something at home in the past like 7-8 years.
Right. So yeah, well, yeah. So they had 2 home losses since 15. So 2 home losses in 8 years.
Yeah, bro, that's crazy.
And so, yep. Usually, if you go into Bryant-Denny, it's a death sentence. Ole Miss goes there in 2 weeks. Rest in peace. But yeah, I mean, they went in and probably into the hardest, if not one of the 2 or 3 hardest places to play, and won the game handily. Like, just thoroughly outplayed them. It was really not that close, to be honest. Texas was better for all 60 minutes. They're really good. I mean, they're really, really good. They've just got to string it together week to week, which for Texas, it's never been the question about the ceiling. It's about stringing it together week to week, stacking day after day, and winning the games necessary to get to the playoff. The ceiling has always been there. The ceiling was there last year. They've just got to string it together and play every game. So, I mean, and really this year there's more margin for error now because you've got the win over Alabama in your back pocket, and the Big 12 appears to be down. So if you slip once, you're fine, but you can't slip twice, and you have to play a conference title game. So, there's a lot of pressure every single week to win every single game. Yeah, but I think they're more than capable. Yeah, I think they're more than capable. We were talking before the show. I mean, if you had to rank teams right now, you'd probably, as far as the playoff goes, you'd probably go, like Florida State 1, Texas 2, and then some form of, probably Michigan and Georgia 3 and 4, just based on resume wins. So, I mean, they're right there. I mean, all you have to do now is take care of business. The win over Alabama is the feather in the cap. Now you just got to go do what you do, handle business, and they're going to be there at the end of the year.
And you have you have, like you said, they set themselves up where if there is a hiccup along the road, like they don't have to be an undefeated Big 12 champ. They can be 12-1 Big 12 champs, and they're going to get in the playoffs because they do have that win over Alabama in the back pocket. And I don't think Alabama is going to be like a 3 or 4 loss team where we look back later and be like, oh, that win doesn't look as great. And at the end of the day, you still beat Alabama, and you can afford.
They've got the right helmet sticker for it too. That'll help.
Yeah, it's Texas. Like, you want Texas in the college football playoffs, like, and you can easily sell a 12-1 Big 12 champ easily to get in there, especially because it'll probably be by the end of the season, it'll be rightfully so anyway. I don't think there'll be 6 teams sitting at 12-1, conference champ, blah, blah, blah. Or all undefeated. They're the only one lost team, and we're trying to figure out a way for Texas to get in. It's not going to sit there like that. You know what I'm saying? So another one I want to talk about, Ole Miss and Tulane. Like, since we're talking about the SEC, Ole Miss kind of struggled. Essentially, the score does not tell how the game went for most of the game. There was a point in time in the middle of the game where you thought Tulane could win this. Obviously, Ole Miss just essentially took off because they are the better team. But the score doesn't dictate. Like, you had to watch the game to understand what I'm saying. Obviously, you watch the game. You're an Ole Miss fan. Talk to me about Ole Miss. I'm going to give you the floor. I did my little rant about Ohio State in the beginning. I'll give you the floor. Talk to me about Ole Miss.
I just thought for most of the game they got pushed around. Like, up front. Like, I thought like they couldn't run the football, so they were one-dimensional on offense, which is probably why they couldn't score. And then defensively for a while, Tulane kind of was finishing runs and was just able to continue like kind of pushing them around up front. And I give Pete Golding a lot of credit. The offense was awful all day long, and the defense, which is historically and also last year was awful at Ole Miss, did enough just to keep them in the game. And finally late, you big time players make big time plays or whatever. I mean, 4th and 4, and quarterback made a play. And so they were able to get out of there with a win, which in the end is all that matters. All that we'll remember is that they won 37-20 on the road against the top 25 team. In the end, that's all that matters. But it would definitely, it's not one that's going to make you feel just all rosy and happy going to Tuscaloosa in 2 weeks. If you're getting pushed around by Tulane up front, Alabama's most certainly going to push you around. And Alabama's going to have a sense of urgency from this point forward because they've got to win every single game they play the rest of the way to get into the college football playoff, including a win over Georgia in the SEC title game. So that's one of those where, it's going to be, they've got to get better. Trey Harris left with an injury yesterday. Zachary Franklin's still not back. Caden Prieskorn's still not back. So arguably your top 3 pass catchers are down, hurt. So that's suboptimal. But yeah, I think once they get healthy, they're going to be good. I think they're going to be really good, to be honest with you. But they've got to get better up front. Like, they've got to find a tight end that can help block. They've got to get back to the run game. Like, Judkins has had 2 bad games. Opponents have loaded the box and dared Ole Miss to beat them through the air, and Ole Miss has done that through 2 games. Scored 73 in week 1, and yeah, it was Mercer. But you kind of know what you see as far as passing game goes. And then I thought yesterday, they went 3 for 75 with 3 passes to open the game and scored in like 40 seconds. I think they're going to be able to sling it around. But you've got to get better up front. Like, you can't sling it around and push the ball down the field if you can't pass protect. So, but I think if you're an Ole Miss fan, I think you're concerned with the offensive line play. You're concerned that your linebackers look like they're playing in quicksand. But other than that, I thought the secondary and the defensive line both played really well yesterday. And then I thought, Trey Harris had another good day prior to getting hurt. He's got 5 touchdowns in 2 games. Like, that'll work. But yeah, that's where they're at. I thought they gutted out a win, which I was happy with. They, won the game by 17. If you had told me that going in, like, hey, I'm not going to tell you how you're going to get there, but you're going to win today 37-20, I would have been like, all right, cool, sign me up. I'm good. Let's go. So.
Right, but at the same time, you're the fan, you're gonna overanalyze, because it's hard to take the fandom out of your team. So at the end of the day, like you said, they're 2-0, they handle business, and like you said, they gotta win on the road against a ranked Tulane team, and that's all you're gonna remember, regardless of what the rest of the season looks like. If it comes down to having to remember that win, you'll remember. Tulane.
Also, people are gonna do this, and I think it's stupid, but people are going to do if Michael Pratt played, then Tulane would have won. And I think that's garbage. Like, it's tough. And like, people who understand football and watch football understand this. Like, they game planned for Michael Pratt all week long, thinking he was going to play. And then all of a sudden at the 11th hour, like, they go to the backup quarterback who has been a starter in the past. And like, you have to basically pitch your game plan and just go play. And so, like, I think people are going to do this, like, oh, well, if Michael Pratt played, Ole Miss would have gotten beat thing. And, like, I think that's garbage. Like, I don't think that's the case at all. Not that it matters, but that's going to be a thing that you hear, like, oh, well, they would have gotten beat by Tulane if Michael Pratt had played. It's like, no, probably not. It may have been a closer game, but probably not.
Right. So let's talk about Washington State beats Wisconsin last night. And that's one of the games going into, for our week 2 preview. That's one of those like, hey, we had a few games on upset alert, and Wisconsin was one of them from you. I had Utah on upset alert, looked really good. And when you put somebody on upset alert, it doesn't mean you think they lose. You just, hey, this game is going to be a lot tighter and a lot closer than I would love for it to be. And there was a point in time where it looked like Utah was going to lose. And they won, like you would say, they won at the 11th hour. They won literally at the end of the game, down to the wire, last few seconds. Wisconsin, on the other hand, loses. You put them on upset alert. You look really great because not only were they on upset alert, they got upset, if that's what you want to consider it, against Washington State. And I think, to me, that game was the stamp that the Pac-12 is the best conference of football right now. Like, that game last night is what put the stamp for me, because they look like the best team top to bottom just for this year through 2 weeks, and all that could unravel. And I really feel bad for the Pac-12 because they're all going to have to play each other, and it is going to unravel. And a team that we thought was damn good is going to finish with 3 losses, and we'd be like, well, look at who their 3 losses were to. They're going to beat each other up in the conference. I don't even see how anybody comes out of that undefeated, but I think that Washington State win last night was impressive. Like, I think it was really impressive.
I think my takeaway was just that I just don't think Wisconsin has the personnel yet to do what Phil Longo is going to want to do, which is like, more of a spread type deal. I think they've still just got a lot of that personnel that, is there to run the I formation and run the football a lot. And so, Wisconsin throws the ball 40 times last night. A strip sack recovered for a touchdown on Mordecai. I just think maybe the Luke Fickell hype was crazy coming into this year. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to be okay. They'll go 9-3, 8-4, and just be like an okay football team. And people will sour a little bit, and then we're going to come back next year, and Wisconsin will be much better once he has a full off season to get dudes that fit his style of play in. But yeah, Pullman's always been a weird place to play, a tough place to play, all of that. And so I don't think that changes at all under a new staff. Cam Ward's a dude at quarterback.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that, because I that was what I was going to ask, was like, hey, we're talking about a lot of quarterbacks. We don't talk about Cam Ward.
No, and he's an FCS transfer too. We should really give him more shine than we do. I think,
and we didn't even mention him last week when Kevin asked us, do the Pac-12 have the best quarterbacks? And we named 6. We didn't even name off Cam Ward.
No, and I think what happens with him as far as getting into that conversation, it's the helmet sticker. Wazoo's not going to get a lot of, just naturally not going to get a lot of shine. And then I think too, it's the fact that they just didn't win a ton of games last year, and it's a program that's not typically going to win a lot of games, and so you just kind of forget about him. But yeah, no, he deserves a lot of credit. He looked really good yesterday. So I think he's a dude. He's just another quarterback in what appears to be a really, really great quarterback conference.
Yeah, it's hands down, like we said it last week, but it's easily hands down the best quarterback conference. And it's not even up for discussion. So I want to bounce back. We talked about a night game. Let's talk about Oregon and Texas Tech. Oregon escapes out of there 38-30. That was another team kind of had on upset alert. Hey, this game is going to be a lot tighter than they would love for it to be, for this to be a ranked team, a top 15 team in the country, having to go into Lubbock and having to beat Texas Tech. And that's exactly what it was. It was the exact game that you said you don't want it to be for Oregon. They just came out on top and won 38-30. What were your thoughts on that game?
I thought it got weird. Oregon went for 2 after the second touchdown and went up, 15-7, and that's kind of where things got screwy. and it just kind of threw off everything for the whole game. Like Tech ends up going for 2 after the next touchdown, doesn't get it, plays down 2. Things just get weird after that. In the end, Tyler Shuck had the ball with, a minute and a half and a timeout left, and a kicker with a cannon leg on the sideline. And all he had to do was probably get to around the 35, maybe not even, maybe the 40. And the offensive, and they couldn't make the plays. They just, that's the difference in the game a lot of times between good teams. It's just it comes down to who makes the play at the end of the game to win the game, and Oregon did. Texas Tech didn't. Texas Tech had red zone turnovers again. They struggled in the deep red again offensively. They left points on the board, and we found out in Wyoming, found out in Lubbock. If you're going to leave points on the board, going to get beat. So I still think it's a pretty decent team. But I think that a lot of their aspirations are kind of out the window. It's like you're 0-2 now with a loss to Wyoming, and then you come home with the chance to rectify it, and you don't. So that's where we're at with them. Obviously, I'm not happy about it. Also, the Oregon, I don't know who he is. The corner who returned that pick for a touchdown, straight up can go to hell. The 6.5, absolutely torched, because that kid has such a poor knowledge of situational football. Can absolutely go to hell. Oregon, I will cheer against Oregon for the rest of the season. Even in 2 weeks, go Buffs. Absolute, that kid can go to hell. So yeah, that was awful. But yeah, no, that's where we're at with it. So I think Tech will bounce back at some point. Surely, I don't even know who they play next week. Surely they did themselves a favor and scheduled an FCS game and can get on the board at least.
Yeah, at least get fucking 2.
Okay, hey, we're on the board now. All right, let's just reset and we'll go from there. Hopefully they don't start conference play next week. Yeah, they've got Tarleton State next week, and then they get West Virginia. So hopefully they can get on the board and get started. But yeah, no, it was no good. I thought Bo Nix played really well on the road, which is something historically he has not done.
He played
that was important. Yeah, he was. He was really good. But yeah, I think that one boils down to Tech just left points on the board in the red zone. Tyler Shuck turned it over. Tyler Shuck turned it over in the red zone again, and that's what happens. And when you turn it over in the red zone like that, you become losers. And I know it burns for him too, because Oregon basically told him to kick rocks, get up out of there, and then Oregon comes back and picks him off and returns it for a touchdown and reminds him hey man, you weren't good enough to be here. So it is what it is. But that's what it is.
So let me ask you, is there anything else you want to cover? Only because we got a little late start. I had to eat. I apologize, but NFL Sunday is up on us, and I know your Titans are about to play. So we don't have to carry on for an hour.
It takes a special level of stupidity. Let's get after the NFL for a second. They screwed the Titans on the opening kickoff. We have not even gotten in yet, and the refs have already hosed them. The Saints fumbled the opening kickoff. The Titans recovered. The refs are blind as an old dog and can't see it. And so they're gonna have to throw the challenge flag on literally play 1, because this league is incompetent as hell. Anywho, but I think that's pretty much it. NC State didn't play well. That lightning delay. Once you get into lightning delays, man, there's no telling. After that, everything is a toss up.
Could turn into a sloppy game. That was kind of a high scoring game for a weather.
Yeah, Utah desperately needs Cam Rising. They really, really were fortunate to get out of there with a win yesterday. I'm trying to see. Congratulations to Duke. They got another win after the big win over Clemson on a short week. Florida State was dominant. USC's defense played well last night. I thought that was worth noting. Held Stanford to 10 points, but with Alex Grinch, it's not a given. Welcome back to Jaylon Daniels. Came back, took the field Friday night against Illinois. It was good to see him back in the field.
He played his ass off. I watched that game. But, hey, matter of fact, you know what? Since you bring that up real quick, and it's crazy that I don't know how I didn't message you during that game. Because
my phone was dead, so I wouldn't have gotten it anyway.
Oh, okay. Well, I was watching Altmaier. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Ole Miss transfer. Hey, second half of that game, bro, he played his ass off. Like there was a point in time where watching that game, I'm sitting there like, dog, Illinois might really come back and be within one possession and possibly like really scare Kansas into having to, hey, tighten up and play their best football for the next drive, or else Illinois comes back and ties it up or takes the lead. Like Altmaier played really good, just ended it with a pick, you know, trying to force it, trying to come back and win the game. But hey, Jaylon Daniels, and I'm going to be honest, that Kansas team, bro, they are fast as shit. Like Kansas just as a whole, their skill positions, their quarterback, they are fast as hell. They running back, speedster, their wide receivers, fast. Like everything Kansas does on the field just look fast as hell.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what he wants to do, though. You know, they want to be fast. They want to play fast. They want to make you cover all 52 yards, sideline to sideline. They did a really good job of it.
They're fast as hell, bro. Like that running back sneaks in the hole, and then he pops out, and he's gone. Like he bro, everything, the end arounds, everything that they run, you just could tell, like, bro, it's a speedster coming and getting the ball, which is really dangerous. I just feel like they're not gonna win anything. I think they're gonna be I think Kansas. I'm gonna tell the world. Kansas is a team. If you're not watching your team and you're just looking for some excitement, watch Kansas football. They have exciting plays. They have an exciting quarterback. And if you just want to watch a college football team that'll just, if your team's not on, or you're like, you find yourself, man, this slate of games right now was not that great, but Kansas is on TV, watch them. Because they're exciting as hell to watch. Like that game Friday night was exciting. And you think Friday night football, Illinois versus Kansas, there's no way you're entertained. Maybe we're college football junkies but Kansas is damn good as far as just an entertaining watch. Like they are, get your popcorn ready. You never know what's going to happen. And especially on the offensive side of the ball. Like that is a team. But I will say this, Kansas, get rid of them damn black uniforms. Them shits the uniforms are not ugly. But that big ass Jayhawk on the side of that black ass helmet does not look good. Get rid of that shit ASAP. Do not wear them black uniforms again, because that Jayhawk on the side of that black helmet looks absolutely horrible. I just had to throw that out there because when I was watching that game, I'm like, dog, their black uniforms are ugly, because that helmet is ugly with that big ass Jayhawk on the side of their helmet. But is there anything else you want to touch up on, Walker?
No, I think I got it. I wanted to hit Kansas for a second, but other than that, I think we're good. At least the officials overturned that.
We're sick.
At least the officials overturned that call. So whatever. Let's go watch football.
We're sick though. I do just want to say, bro, we had to mention Kansas and Illinois. Like, we're sick, bro. We sat there. I don't know. I know you cover high school football, so I don't know how much you watched of that on Friday night. But like, bro, I literally sat there and was like, "Oh, college football, Kansas." I
was at a high school game watching some of my basketball guys play. So, I did not see it. I saw
because I did.
I saw. But I will say I'm sick enough that I was checking the score. Like, I was checking the score in the press box before my phone died. So I mean, I was very aware that the game was going on, and let's just say I had a vested interest in who won and who lost.
Yeah, bro, I'm sick. I watched the game from start to finish. Kansas was up 28-7. It looked all bad, and it's still on the TV, and it's not just on the TV as background noise. I'm literally sitting there watching it. But on that note, we'll end Field Stormers. Usually we go about an hour, but it's NFL Sunday and we got a little bit later start. I do apologize for that, but we will have a week 3 preview coming for you later this week. By Thursday or Friday, it will drop. Don't know what day we'll record. We'll kind of match schedules, but by Thursday or Friday, it will be out. The week 3 preview. I think it's some good games. I really haven't even looked. As soon as college football was over yesterday, go forward to the NFL.
If it tells you what you need to know, College Game Day is going to Boulder to watch Colorado State. So,
and I'm looking at all the ranked teams and who they play. Next week actually kind of sucks. Like next week is no bueno, essentially. I think all the scouts are going to be watching. If I'm a scout, I'm watching South Carolina versus Georgia only because I want to see what Spencer Rattler looks like against Georgia to see if he's an NFL guy and if I could consider him a first round pick. Like, other than that, I don't really. I mean, LSU, Mississippi State could be good just because it's conference, but we'll talk about it in the week 3 preview. But week 3 actually kind of sucks. But we are about to get into conference play after next week, so week 4 will be great. I can't wait. So Walker, I appreciate you as always as a co-host. We make this thing on Phil Stormer's Rock. But on that note, follow me at Mo_Cheese15. Follow Walker at Walker Bailey 818 on Twitter. Check us out. We're always tweeting sports, especially during football season. But we appreciate everybody for tuning in. We appreciate everybody for listening. We will catch you later this week on the week 3 preview of Field Stormers.